when we take this to the government level, it's for a specific reason. As a movement, there are a number of things that we cannot do. As a government, there are a number of things that we should be able to do. I mentioned at the beginning, territory, people, government, equal country. So once we get a country, every country has a right to its own army, to its own police force, to its own policy on trade. And so what Mr. Biya needs to know is that when we get our government will start entering into defense treaties with other governments. Our own government will be exactly as all other governments. It will have a right to the monopoly of violence. Our government will have a right to defend our territory. Our government will have a right to protect our people. They will use the instruments that every government in the world uses to defend their people. That is something that a government does, that movements don't. Our government will have a right to go and negotiate with other governments. Movements don't do that. Our government will have a right to apply to join the Commonwealth and to ask that Cameroon be dismissed from the Commonwealth for joining under false pretext and for doing everything to destroy Commonwealth values. Our government will have a right to apply to join ECOWAS and to be part of the ECOMOG force. And if Mr. Biya likes the ECOMOG, he can ask the former dictator of the Gambia how it feels to be driven out of presidential palace. Our government will have a right to ask to be seated at the United Nations and at the AU and elsewhere around the world. Our movements together, even together under SCACUF, cannot do that. And so we are getting into another phase in May that Mr. Biya has always thought was not coming. But this time around, it is coming, and it is coming with sufficient legitimacy and sufficient support from our people for the international community to follow. The last thing I would say is that the international community is asking themselves, are these people truly committed? If you go to a dive and the bereaved are not crying, and you start crying, there's a problem. The UN is waiting for us to cry seriously at our own die. And we are behaving like it is going to be them crying for us. No. This has got to be our cry. And that is why there are some amazing people here in Atlanta. Frankly, when they say you've been back and all of that, when people drive from here to New York to attend a rally and drive back home, that is commitment. The only thing we need to recognize is that there's even more commitment in sweat and blood by people at home. And on their behalf, and because they cannot do what we must do now, we need all of us to do what Kwame Nkrumah did for Ghana from out of this country. Working in the same position as ourselves, take full advantage of freedom in this country to make sure that you can bring that freedom to your people.
I took down some names, so I'm going